Hello, and welcome to WKNC's official sports podcast, In the Den. Today we'll be going over the Campbell football game and the upcoming Notre Dame football game. We'll be going over men's soccer as they head off against Clemson. And we'll finish up by talking about the volleyball doubleheader with Wake Forest. So, get your headphones on. Let's get straight to it. Well, there's no beating around the bush that NC State took care of business against Campbell, which is, what they should do, as I keep mentioning with the lower level FCS opponents. For the first time since early September, so this is the first win in a while. They're now up to 4-2 on the season. NC State dominated Campbell 56-10 with backups in by the fourth quarter. Just kind of for comparison, I'm pretty sure, didn't the UNC Clemson game have backups in by the second? I digress. NC State, they averaged 11 yards a pass and 9 yards a run and held Campbell to 2 yards a rush and 3.8 yards a pass. CJ Bailey scored 4 touchdowns and had an 86% completion accuracy, while Hollywood Smothers only had 4 carries. He ran for 123 yards. And backup Jaden Scott got himself 2 touchdowns and 89 yards. Jolly and Anderson both caught touchdowns, and our freshman receiver, Teddy Hoffman, got 2 fumbles and lost 1 on a punt return, which is kind of a little worry. But as you can see, the grand scheme of the game, it didn't really matter too much. Some defensive stars: Sebastian Harsh got himself 1.5 sacks. Ronnie Royal III got 8 tackles and a pass deflected. Trey Thomas got half a sack and a tackle for a loss. And the tackle leader, Kenny Soares, got 9. However, despite the presumed dominance, there were some issues with the team that could give me some concerns for Notre Dame. That 3 and 8 on third and fourth downs, going even 75% on third and fourth downs is a little fishy for me. And going below 50% is just, in my opinion, it's just awful. I will say this, I will give a little bit of clemency. 4 and 18 on third and fourth downs for Campbell. And all 5 of those failed third and fourth conversions were by the backups. So, yes, this is mostly a backup problem. This is not something that NC State had to worry about in this game. I was just kind of looking at the box score for that, and I was like, don't love it. Don't love it. Special teams is always going to be an issue. With the punt return fumble. Kicking still not that great. Our punter is decent. And another kind of backup turnover. Will Wilson threw an interception. Not a big deal. But that's something that kind of worth mentioning. And the last thing I'd like to mention, 7 penalties for 76 yards. And one even overturned a 78-yard punt return. And, it was kind of a split between offense and defense. That's a whole drive. If you kick a ball for a touchback, that's a whole touchdown in terms of yardage. Cut down the penalties while you can. Maybe I'm kind of being a little too nitpicky on things bad. I'm trying to find ways to talk about stuff, but I don't love it. If we could avoid it, please do so. I guess that's really all there is to say. I'm just happy to see our starters working well and getting ready for next week. Smothers still a beast. Bailey's a good young quarterback. Defense is doing just enough. Notre Dame is ranked 16th at the time of recording. They're 3-2, having won multiple consecutive games after a loss to At the time, number 2 Miami, Florida, and at the time, top 10 Texas A&M. They're fighting to break into the college football playoffs, and just one loss could play spoiler to their season. In the last few games, they had it's a blowout if it's double, right? Because I think it was like 28-14 for the Boise State game. And, of course, obviously the blowout at Arkansas. They got Sam Pittman canned, and crazy enough, Bobby Petrino is back as Arkansas head coach. Hey, if you think anything is impossible, just look at the fact that Bobby Petrino's back with Arkansas, and you can do anything. That's like the most motivational thing I can think of. But I gotta keep myself from the tandems, Jeremiah Love is one of Notre Dame's great running backs. That's kind of another thing to notice. CJ Carr and CJ Bailey, they're both kind of like those young, inexperienced quarterbacks that are still making a good amount of errors, but have strong weapons to support them, strong running backs, some pretty good receivers. Notre Dame's offensive line is like absolute peak. Like, yes, CJ Carr does get sacked, he does get pressure, he does make mistakes, but they are given so much to CJ Carr to help him develop. Like, I swear, every time I watched them, it felt like they just had everything covered. And this is like, I was watching the Boise State game and then also the Texas A&M game. That's what I usually do when I try to scout these. I'm not great at scouting games. I watched their most recent win and their most recent loss, compared them. So, before I kind of start tandem in again, let's kind of get into the matchups. NC State passing offense versus Notre Dame passing defense. Kind of going into that Battle of the CJs thing I mentioned. I'm kind of not in love with our receiver core. I think it's deep. I think it's versatile. We got a lot of good guys, and every week there's someone who kind of shows up. I just wish that we could get more from. We don't have a star. Our closest thing to a star would likely be, Terrell Anderson. But okay, Jolly also, he's been kind of catching up, even though he was the expected number 1 guy. Hollywood Smothers also has a good impact in the receiving game as well, which is interesting. Noah Rogers kind of there too. I think ultimately they have a lot of guys that they can kind of move around and try to make work. And I am very intrigued to see how they take it. I'm assuming that I'm trying to figure out what the right strategy would be to trying to take advantage of Notre Dame, because Notre Dame's secondary, that's kind of why I'm a little hesitant to say that NC State has the advantage on this level, because, CJ Bailey, as I mentioned, he's clean. He's playing clean. It's just, he makes some mistakes every now and then. I mean, just look at, he was a part of losing in that Virginia Tech game, for instance. I think, and he's had some bad passes that became interceptions, and has shown some struggles with pressure. And Notre Dame, as I mentioned before, they have one of the strongest secondaries in college football. They have their safety, Adon Schuler. He leads the team in tackles. Look at and with 2 pass deflections. Just look at Christian Gray, 4 pass deflections. Leonard Moore, their other corner, 3 interceptions. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players who have gotten an interception. NC State has only really given up 2. That's kind of the thing. I mean, NC State's passing defense is not great at forcing turnovers except in desperate situations, such as the end of that Virginia game where it was kind of just a heave to try to get the win for Chandler Morris. Or you have to look at Wake Forest. I believe the Wake Forest interception was a game clincher too. Yeah, because they had the 2 consecutive game clinching touchdowns or interceptions. And I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think NC State's only gotten like 1 fumble in their favor. So, where am I getting with this? And that defensive line is really good at forcing pressure on the quarterback. I mean, I saw the pocket collapse a lot in that Boise State game, and I think a lot of the interceptions were just from really strong man coverage and from the quarterback not having as much time in the pockets, which are both things that I think CJ Bailey's got to watch out for. I don't think he's had this strong of a secondary faced against him. I don't want to say in his career in college, but it'll be a while before we see something like this again. So, on that note, advantage Notre Dame. Now, let's look at CJ Carr. No true. Is he a true freshman or is he a true redshirt freshman? Oh no, I should have done my research before. Okay, yeah, he's a true freshman. Came in, he's the grandson of Lloyd Carr, former head coach. And he's been playing well too. 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Let's see. Completes about 2/3 of his passes, which, hey, CJ Bailey completes more. What can I say? But as I mentioned before, that really strong offensive line for Notre Dame has given CJ Carr plenty of time to develop. And their receiving core, led by Jordan Faison and Malachi Fields, are a very high-quality duo because, once they're able to get open, there's really no catching them in. Of course, the flexibility with Jeremiah Love, where he has also received a lot of yards, and he's gotten 3 receiving touchdowns. I think that if I am NC State's defense, I got my work cut out for me. I think that they just need to kind of do that high safety defense, just kind of sit back and just, I don't want to say just let these plays develop before you force anything, but you just can't let the trickery kind of get to you because I feel like it's just those small gaps of separation that they really need. Because, like, that's first receiving touchdown with Boise State, that was like over the head, back shoulder pass, and then, like, the corner was literally on that receiver whose name I am blanking out on. It's just, I don't know. They got a really strong receiver. They got a really strong offensive line. I want to give some shout-outs. Okay, yeah, I got to shout out their offensive line at some point because they got some really, really good guys on their line. Remember, we got C. Correll from them last year, and obviously and he's still he's in a league now with Minnesota. So Notre Dame can produce strong offensive lines. I think their quarterback does make mistakes, but so will CJ Bailey. It'll be a really ugly passing game for both, but ultimately Notre Dame advantage again, just because I have trust issues with the secondary. Moving on, I would also like to give a brief shout out. We're going to start the rushing game. Hollywood Smothers. I think he's second in the country with rushing yards at almost 700 in 5 games. He's probably going to break, uh, spacing out. He'll break a 1,500 yards. He's not going to have an Ashton Genty season, but he's playing really strong football, and I don't think anyone expected him to be running the way it is. And with, of course, CJ Bailey also carrying the ball, and he's been helpful pretty early in the season in the running game. Jaden Scott's a really strong backup. I think that, yes, I do think that they kind of have to rely a little bit more on East-West than I would like. I think once they're able to get North-South, it is really hard to stop either of these running backs. And to have that kind of that running option with CJ Bailey just opens up the playbook a lot more than what you can get from like CJ Carr. I mean, he only has 26 rushing yards and a long of 28. Kind of just leave that there. But I think that the rushing offensive advantage does go to NC State because they have a really strong. I keep blanking out. Hollywood Smothers, Jaden Scott. They have really good offensive line as well. I think that a lot of the mistakes can be prevented. I mean, of course, you got Teague Anderson, Jalen Grant. These guys have been playing really strong football this season, and I don't know. I think that NC State we just find in the Russian offense. Notre Dame's defensive line do have about, where's their tackles for loss? I mean, I think with some creative playmaking, Notre Dame is able to stop it. I just don't think they will. I mean, I think no team has really been able to stop Hollywood Smothers. And Notre Dame's not an exception. One thing I am excited for, however, is to see how Jeremiah Love handles our defensive line. I think that, as I mentioned before, the kind of early fluke with ECU's kind of gone now. I think that after Jamari Taylor and after Anderson Castle, the Russian defense is iffy. And what I would really like to believe that, I really want to believe that NC State can stop a running back. I don't think it's possible anymore. I think, they couldn't get Jamari Taylor, and he's really good. I keep mentioning the same freaking running backs over and over, but it's just, that's the kind of precedence they set. That's why, when you face off against these really good teams, you have to impress. That's why NC State, they did almost lose against Virginia, and I think that is something that I should have honed on a bit more when that happened, because it should have seen the signs coming. It should have seen that they couldn't stop Jamari Taylor, that they couldn't stop Chandler Morris until it really mattered. They had to out-offend their opponents. They couldn't out-offend Darian Menza and Duke. Well, obviously they could out-offend Wake Forest, and the defense was really strong against Wake Forest, but then again, it is Wake Forest. Same Wake Forest, I went to overtime against Georgia Tech. That game's always going to be kind of iffy to me now. Where was I? Jeremiah Love is going to get tons of yardage. He's going to get some touchdowns. There's going to be that dual threat with receiving and catching. Just tackle him. Do what you can to diminish his effectiveness, because I feel like he's going to break through this off defensive line. He's going to get yards. It's going to come down to Sean Brown, Caden Fordham, get the tackles. Okay? And they can stop him. Advantage Notre Dame, though. Ugh. I guess kind of the last thing I would like to kind of ramble on about is, of course, reminder that another team has a pretty decent kicker. They have been kind of jumping around with kickers. They haven't really used theirs much. They've only gotten like 4 attempts on the season. Well, we only got what's it called? 6. Noah Finisette. It's kind of jumped up to about 2/3 of his field goals made. Nothing beyond the 39-yard line. 95% extra points. It seems like if I look at the Notre Dame game, the Boise State game, I think that's probably the kicker they're going to stick with. Even though they use both. I don't know who's, because they've used 3 different kickers. I don't know if it's going to be It's going to be iffy. So I'm just going to go with who they used last week. They used Marcelo Diomaid Jr. He's gotten both of his extra points in the last game. He hasn't kicked a field goal yet this season, but let's take a look at last season. He's only attempted 1 field goal in his career. They might not use him, actually. But they did. They were using Eric Schmidt. Okay, they just have not been kicking field goals much this season. So it's kind of like a small sample size for both. Can't really tell what the kicking game is going to be for both of these teams. I think Noah Burnett is probably their best shot. So, and he's from Raleigh. So look at that. I'm just going to move on. Punting wise, there is, of course, our punter is still playing pretty well. He didn't get much action until, about the 4th quarter last game. And let's see. He will. I feel good about our special teams. I think we have the advantage there. Let's see their punter stats. James Rendell, their punter, has about a 45-yard average with only 4 in the 20. So, yeah, we got a better punter. And, well, like I said, advantage NC State. I think it's kind of close because I'm going a bit too long. The way to win this game is just to shut down Jeremiah Love the best he can, put the pressure on CJ Carr, force him to make any mistakes that he can, and just try to, again, out-offend the opponent. CJ Bailey, Hollywood Smothers need to bring their A game if they want to play spoiler. That's just what they have to do. So that kind of concludes today's segment. I think that Notre Dame will probably win, but I think if NC State can just put on a strong, decent fight, then they could eventually either prove themselves as a team that could contend or as a team that could get itself in the top 25. Coming up next, men's soccer versus Clemson. All right, well, Virginia gave NC State their first loss of the season all the way in October, which I think is the last month of the regular season. Funnily enough, I'm not even upset about this. Nicholas Simons, he would get a header within the first 20 minutes, but then afterwards kind of all the offensive activity stopped. It was really a stronger defensive game. Both teams had strong defensive performances, with Virginia only giving up 2 shots on goals and NC State giving up 4. Logan Erb, he went 3 for 4, giving up his second goal of the season. And Virginia goalie Casper Moles helped to shut out NC State. ultimately, Virginia had the edge and proved the ability to continue its upset trend. And therefore, I don't think we've gotten the rankings update yet. But I'm assuming NC State. Okay, yeah. NC State drops to 10th. Whew. Man, that's a little harsh. And Virginia jumps up to 8. Other ACC teams ahead of us: Duke, Stanford. Ugh. So, oh well. Donovan Phillips, of course, he got a shot on goal with a header. Drew Lovelace was also able to get one. It's unusual to see an NC State stifled offense, but it's something that I hope is just kind of like a bad fluke and won't come up again. Looking at the highlights, I think both teams executed their plays pretty well. It was just that the defenses were stronger, that Virginia just had that stroke of good fortune to get the goal in. NC State, it was just a bad game. Couldn't get a goal in. Some bad luck. Some very strong defense by Virginia. There's nothing they could really do about it. But they can just look ahead. This Friday, NC State will face off Clemson to prepare for their road trip to face off against number 7 Duke. The theme of that game is going to be White Out for Mental Health Awareness. I feel like I should kind of start mentioning the themes of the games a bit more. Clemson entered the preseason poll ranked number 9. But as of time of recording, they doesn't look like they have a single vote on the United Soccer Coaches rankings. They they've won 3 straight games against Cal, former ranked Wake Forest, and Elon, after 3 consecutive ties and losses from Virginia Commonwealth, SMU, and Queens of North Carolina. We faced before and blew out. Clemson is one of 4 ACC teams with a goal margin of +1, which is 1 extra goal per opponent goal, at 1.2. They score an average 2.5 goals per game versus NC State's 2.64, but have a low save percentage at 67%, while NC State's at 93. What? Even though I would argue that Logan Erb doesn't get many opportunities because our defense is so good, but whatever. Some other notable team stats: they lead the ACC with 2 red cards and allowed a 5th most total goals at 13, while NC State has scored more than double that all season. So, not really sure why I put that there, why that matters. I think that Clemson gives up a lot of goals, and NC State scores a lot of goals. There it is. They have really good 1-2 punch with Ransford Guyan and Nathan Richmond, who both have 8 and 7 goals respectively. But Ransford has 7 assists, which is second in the ACC. Wahabu Musa, he is questionable after a leg injury, but he scored 5 goals with a 42% shot on goal accuracy. So he's been kind of like their number 3 guy in the offensive front. Joseph Andima has 26 saves and 13 goals, as well as 2 shutout games and 10 total versus NC State's 8 and 10. So they do have some good offensive guys. It'll be kind of like the FAU game where it's like, okay, matchups. Let's get our strong defensive guys like Hefes or Markovic and get them lined up against these guys and just try to force turnovers, try to make them look weak, try to shut down Guyan, and they should be fine. Phillip is carrying the offensive load, and I'd like to see some more support. Anyone who can show up must show up if they kind of want to get the competitive edge. Defensively, I mean, like I said, just kind of put the pressure on them, keep up what they've been doing. Both teams have played a lot, have a lot of fouls, so I would like a little bit of a cleaner game, even though kind of the yellow and Clemson kind of has a disadvantage with the yellow and red cards. Just keep another potential spoiler by out-offending their opponents and forcing another win. Final score prediction, 3-2, NC State. Now, for the last part, our women's volleyball doubleheader. NC State got their butts handed to them, losing in 3 sets. The first set was pretty much a blowout as Miami led as much as 9 scores, and NC State had a negative shooting percentage, which, in case you don't know, in order to get a negative shooting percentage, it's more errors than kills. Scoring momentum came from a blend of plays and errors from Bryant and Ring, who led the offense during this game. Yeah, it's just like when those two weren't able to step up because Miami does have a pretty strong defense and they were able to really stifle our strongest offensive performers, and therefore they were able to kind of carry the load with their star player. Let's see. Nadia Mine, with her 3 service aces, was also really good. Especially, I think it was 3 in that second set. It was a back and forth, but Miami just broke through. Rebecca Ring tried a way to come back, but Miami was able to close it out, and the closest NC State got to win in that set was near the end at 24-20. The third series was also competitive, but then Miami, of course, they kind of break through late. I think that's what happens. It's almost like the volleyball team kind of gets their tires tread by like the halfway point in a set. And unless they have a major lead, they just can't do anything. I feel like I'm a broken record kind of saying that they just can't come back. But I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it's just kind of like getting down and that kind of kills all the momentum, or if it's just they are just not that good and they just keep getting outcompended. It was a blend of offensive success, all facilitated by Ariana Rodriguez, that put Miami up by 7. But Amine closes out the set to complete the shutout win for Miami, Florida. Oh, well. Old habits die hard. Defense isn't strong enough to keep track with high-power offenses. And we just have a bunch of role players and a coach whose hands are tied by bleeding timeouts and trying to figure out what to do. Obviously, like a kind of a young and experienced head coach. Warren O'Kearney, I support her. But, the first season's always going to be tough, and this season is no exception. For the first time this season, they've fallen below 500. And I hope they are able to get back. That should be the goal. Just try to get back, get some quality wins, get some momentum. Try to continue to be a dark horse candidate. Try to create some kind of men's basketball March Madness run. But with each passing game, it feels less and less likely. But they do have a doubleheader against the low-quality Wake Forest that could potentially help them out in that front. Wake Forest, as of recording, is also coming off a loss against Miami, Florida. They are 7-8 on the season, which is a similar record to NC State. They have notable wins with Duke, Maryland, and Navy, but have lost to UNC, Bama, and Florida State. Just kind of like some kind of big names, big matchups, just to kind of look at. They have a bottom 5 defense, being within that tier, but never last, and blocks opponent hit percentage and opponent kills. Defensively, their biggest blocks and digs producers are Emma Farrell, who is second in the ACC in blocks, or digs, and their blocks duo of Kellis Hawkins and Sana Williams. Offensively, they're also lackluster. So look at that. It's kind of like a I don't want to say mediocre teams heading off against each other. The middle of the road in most major stats, such as kills and hit percentage. Becca Bellows has about 0.37 service aces per set, which is 10th in the conference, paired with her 5.5 assists per set. But the offensive firepower comes from Paige Crawford and Riley Whitekettle with 3.13 and 2.45 kills per set each. I'm playing away home series against Wake Forest during this weekend to try to build any sort of momentum and get back to 500. Do I think they'll win both games? No. Will they win one game? I think that NC State should win at least one of these two matchups. But it feels like the two pair up perfectly. If I'm making sense of it at all, I hope that our guys, Bryant and Ring, I hope they can kind of shake off their rough game and take down that blocking duo. I do like that we have two players that are decent setter-ups with Mullins and Villar, which I think will be helpful, and I think we'll kind of try to introduce a little dynamic offensive front, especially if Dorsey kind of starts getting back in rotation more. Sujia, Daniels, Villar. We do have our work cut out defensively when it comes to dismantling this offense. A lot of the effort comes from Becca Bellows, and shutting her down would help a lot in trying to shut down Williams and Hawkins. I think it's kind of just the same formula. Yes, try to stop this offense, stop the flow of Becca Bellows, and that Hawkins-Williams duo just out-hit, get high, and just make sure that they can never really get to the ball, because once they do, that's easy points, especially since NC State's really good at providing mistakes. They can't be producing mistakes, and this is why I'm worried that they're going to lose both of these games, because just that's what happens. These big scoring streaks are started by mistakes, and once Hawkins or Williams are able to get their hands on the ball, I'm worried it's just going to kill everything for NC State. But as long as they can do that, and as long as Ring and Bryant can kind of shake off their rough games, they should be fine. I think they'll lose the first game away in probably 4 sets, win the second one in 5. Anyways, that concludes today's episode. I hope you enjoyed listening. I hope you all have a good day. Next week, we begin our women's basketball coverage. What? Of course, the cross-country season finale, Clemson volleyball, and men's soccer, because NC State football has the bye week. Anyways, have a good one, and go Pack.